G'day guys and welcome to ReDriven. Now, look, if you're not from Australia or New Zealand or you're not a car person, you may not know what this thing even is. Basically, imagine that a Corvette and a pickup truck made sweet, passionate love, and this, the SS Commodore Ute, was the result. Now, these things have an almost cult-like status, but are they actually any good? What goes wrong with them? Can you live with them every day? And most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, before we get deep into the SS Ute, can you do us a favour and hit those like, subscribe and bell icon buttons? They really do help us. And hey, while you're at it, why not go and follow us on the socials as well? Now, if ever a car was quintessentially Australian, surely it has to be the V8 Holden SS Ute. Which is odd because Australia didn't even invent the whole ute pickup concept. That honour goes to the US with their roadster utility vehicles of the 1920s. And Ford was responsible for the first Australian ute back in 1934. But as Aussies, we never let the facts get in the way of a good story, so apparently this is the classic Aussie ute. Now, in this video, we will be focusing on the V8 Ute variant of the VE SS, but the 2006 to 2013 VE range was also available as a sedan, actually known as a Pontiac G8 in the US or a Chevrolet Omega or Lumina in other markets, and there was a sports wagon, which I personally think is the coolest of the range. Also in the UK and bits of Europe, modified and tuned versions of these were sold as the Vauxhall VXR8. When I say modified and tuned versions, I'm referring to the HSV models or the Holden Special Vehicle models. For those not in the know, Holden Special Vehicles is to Holden what M is to BMW or AMG is to Mercedes. We're going to do a whole separate video on HSV models because they're pretty special and they deserve their own video. The SS was available in a variety of variants, from the standard SS to SSV, SSV Redline, through to a multitude of various special editions, all receiving extra kit and features. Now, the VE range received continual updates all through its production run, and most notably the Series 2 VE. And look, we can't go through every graphic detail of every variant and special edition in this video, it'll just take far too long. But we have done that and we've put it in our handy ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before you hand over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out in the link below. Now, I should mention, these don't exist anymore. Like it physically exists here in the flesh or in the metal. And there was a model after this called the VF, but the Commodore, the Commodore Ute, and actually Holden as a brand, it doesn't exist anymore. General Motors killed it off, which is kind of sad. Anyway, let's get on with it. So, does it look good? Look, subjective stuff first. This is my personal favorite of all of the Commodore series, especially in the sports wagon. I love a fast wagon. What do you think? What's your favorite Commodore? Let us know in the comment section below. When it comes to the Utes, most of these are lowered and they have enormous wheels on them, but oddly, this in stock form, I think looks more special than the modified ones. I think it just looks, I don't know, it's just rare to see a completely standard one. It's awesome. Size-wise, it's a big unit of a thing, but that's kind of what the Commodore was all about. And as far as quality goes, it's pretty good, but there are a few things you need to watch out for. This thing has well over 200,000 kilometres on it, and the paint is excellent, like really, really good. The paint is peeling off the mirrors a little bit, but that's a pretty cheap and easy fix. On this particular car, all the panel gaps are excellent. These window rubbers are perishing. This is a really common issue with the VE. If they are heavily perished, water can get in, so make sure you check inside for any dampness or water damage, but these are really cheap and easy to fix. Now, these are a rear-wheel drive performance ute, so they love to go sideways, but the problem is many of their owners lack the skill set to bring them back from sideways, meaning they're a bit more susceptible to damage back here. So yeah, make sure you check here for damage and any dodgy repair work. It might have been drifted into a letterbox or some shrubs, and as TLC said, we don't want no shrubs. So check out for any mismatched paint or any dodgy repair work in general. Also, these tonneau covers stitching, it's known to fray and kind of fall apart exactly like this one has done. It's a pretty easy fix, or just buy a whole new cover. They're not very expensive. Make sure you check the rear tyres and up under here in the wheel arches for any excess rubber from burnouts. Now, if they have held the drift for like far too long, it means that they might have nosed it into the scenery. So at the front, again, check all the panel gaps, make sure the paint matches between panels, look for any dodgy repair work. Also pop the bonnet and look at the cross member and look down here for, again, any signs of dodgy repairs. Also up front, these front bars are known to sag, leaving a massive panel gap between the headlight and the front bar. Obviously this car hasn't suffered from it, but yeah, just check it out. This car has over 225,000 kilometers on it, and have a look at this. Like, it's holding up really well. There are a few, there's a few little issues, we'll get to those in a second, but 225,000 Ks and it looks this good. Amazing. From an overall design aspect, it is aging. It's in that weird spot at the moment where it's not old enough to be, retro cool, but it's not new enough to be, cutting edge cool. But it's not too bad. Design-wise is okay. One thing I do love, I love how they've integrated the handbrake into the center console here. It's not the best for ergonomics. It's a bit weird, you've got to twist your arm, but that's just clever design. Size-wise, it is really spacious in here. It's quite a large vehicle. As far as ergonomics go, all the touch points are good. The seating position, you're not hunkered down like in a real performance car, but the seating position is still fine. One weird thing, all the pedals are kind of off to the right, so you're feeling just kind of a little bit askew, but it's kind of just relaxed, a bit like Australia. Look, overall, all the touch points, they're fine. Like, it is getting old. It feels a little bit harsh. The fabric on the seat's wearing really well. The leather can get a bit shiny, but the fabric, excellent. One thing to watch out for, but a quality thing, on early VEs, some of these lower interior trim pieces can fail and worst case scenario actually fall apart. So yeah, just check under there. Besides that, it's okay. One funny thing, on the armrest here, not only can you see where the owner has been resting his arm because the pleather texture has gone from kind of rough to smooth, but the actual squishiness of the armrest, you can feel that your arm just fits perfectly into his squish. Oh, that's a bit gross. Speaking of squishiness, the seats, their squish is still quite good. They, after 225,000 Ks, they're not falling apart. They're still quite supportive. However, I don't know if you can hear that. There's like a clicking sound. So if you're into like violent dancing, yeah, it gets a bit annoying. Even the leather on the steering wheel is wearing, but it's wearing quite well. Like 225,000 Ks, this is many years old, and it's not too bad. That's not something we could say about a $250,000 Mercedes S-Class. The video link is just up there because its leather on the steering wheel and leather in general is falling apart. But this, that's pretty good. Well done. One annoying thing, the dials aren't that easy to read. It's white text on a grey dial, so it's not very easy to read. You've got the little center screen to tell you what speed you're doing, but if you're used to looking at the dials instead of the screen, you've got to kind of double take. And in a car with this sort of performance, you really need to keep your eyes on the road, not trying to work out what the dial says. And space in the back seat? To you, there is no back seat. How's the tech? Well, look, it's not that great. This car was developed around the same time that the Motorola Razr was the go-to mobile device. So there's no Bluetooth, there's no real phone connectivity, but it does have a CD stacker and AM and FM radio. The Series 2 VE from 2010 did receive a 6.5-inch touchscreen featuring Holden IQ. This featured iPod integration, USB and auxiliary inputs, and incorporated Bluetooth hands-free telephone compatibility and music streaming. On the V Series spec cars, IQ also included satellite navigation with live traffic updates, speed zone alerts, and traffic camera notifications. And sedans and wagons also received a reversing camera. But that Holden IQ system is feeling very, very old. Honestly, it was pretty average when it was brand new, so these days it's just bloody horrible. So oddly, the old school system kind of feels more current and easy to use than that horrible touchscreen. As far as driving tech goes, in this particular car, you've got cruise control, and that's about it. There's no parking sensors, no reverse camera, not a whole lot. So is it practical? Yes, immensely. It is huge back here. Plus the wheel arches don't intrude into the tray too much. It's got tie down points, 4 cup holders and 19 sausage holders. Perfect for a Barbie. And practicality in the back, well, you've got a spot down here which is actually quite deep, so you could probably fit a whole bunch of iPad minis. There's a net here in case you go fishing and you need to put your fish somewhere, and mat pockets. There's also a little cubby hole here. Don't know how you're going to get to it, but it's there. And up front, there's an okay amount of storage. There's a spot up here for your sunglasses. There's a good size storage bin in here. 2 cup holders. There's a section here next to in the center console that isn't really big enough for a phone. Funnily enough, like this car was not invented when these phones were around, but there's a spot here that is perfectly sized for a mobile phone. It's like they spoke with Steve Jobs years ago. It's got okay sized door bins, but they're solid plastic, so anything you put in just rattles around and gets all scratchy, but it does have a massive glove box. What goes wrong with them? Are they reliable? Well, General Motors spent $1 billion developing the VE Commodore, and they were designed to handle our incredibly tough Aussie conditions, but they are getting pretty old, so surely a few things must go wrong. Or do they? Well, I'm not a mechanic, I'm not qualified to answer those questions, but Jim is.
Look, we actually had a meeting in the workshop today, and I've spoken to some of my mechanic mates, and the general consensus is on these V8 SS utes is not really much goes wrong. They're just really good all round and a really stout little nugget. The LS V8 in these things has been around since the dawn of time, and it is strong. With regular servicing, it just goes and goes and goes. In fact, without regular servicing, just goes and goes and goes. We very rarely see any problems. The odd water pump or a harmonic balancer, and the car itself, or Commodore's maybe a radiator here or a wheel speed sensor there, but overall, all the parts are pretty cheap and they're really quite easy to fix too.
Is it safe? Well, it has ABS, traction control, stability control, 6 airbags and a 5-star NCAP safety rating, so it should be pretty safe. But it is a V8 and rear-wheel drive, and it's relying on safety tech that is now over a decade old, so those safety credentials do have their limits. So what's it like to drive? Well, look, negatives first. It's a big car and it feels it. Like, it's pretty easy to judge the extremities towards the front, but yeah, you're constantly aware there's a lot of car underneath you. Now, this doesn't affect the sedan or the sports wagon as much, but rear visibility in the ute or judging where the extremities of that rear tub are can be a challenge. There are some pretty hectic blind spots either side as well. When you're reversing, judging where the back of the tray is, I wish there was a reverse camera or at least some parking sensors. Okay, as far as noises go, there's a bit of wind noise over here, which is a little bit frustrating, but you know, it's a ute. It's not exactly the most sleek car of design, so that's to be expected. Road noise isn't too bad. It's going to depend on what sort of tyres you've got. The more performance tyres you've got, chances are the more road noise you're actually going to get. And there are a few little rattles and squeaks that are occurring, but you know, this thing's got over 225,000 Ks on it. It's many years old. That's to be expected. Okay, positives. The ride quality is excellent. Like, this thing, again, has got a stack of kilometres on it, but it rides really well, not only out on these open roads and the freeway, but on rough roads around suburbs, it rides really well. It needs to be noted that some of the suspension bushes and components are known to wear from about 120,000 Ks, and the shocks can wear out even sooner than that. But again, it's a Commodore, they're not going to be too expensive to replace. And when you start to push it through some corners and have a bit of fun, it's just so beautifully balanced. Yeah, it handles great. Look, it's not razor sharp like some hyperactive hot hatch, but it's just so enjoyable to drive. Yeah, love it. Now, how's that engine? There's just something so addictive about that thick, yummy, torquey V8. It's not crazy fast. There's a whole bunch of 4-cylinder hot hatches that would leave this thing for dead these days, but I don't know, there's just something romantic and lovely about this lazy power delivery of these big lumping V8s. It just, yeah, it's a special power plant. Everything about this, even though, look, it is a performance car, but everything about this is just kind of chilled and lazy. Like, the steering is light, but it's not vague in any way. The throttle, it's got so much travel to the throttle pedal, which is nice because it's, you know, responsive and it gives you something to do. The brakes are still pretty progressive. They might not be up to, you know, modern standards of stopping power. The shift, look, it's not going to win any awards for shift feel, and it is quite a long throw, and you have to be pretty muscular and definite with the shifts, but yeah, it's all involving. There's theatre to this car. It's great. Unlike almost every other SS in Australia, this one still has a completely standard exhaust, and it still sounds bloody lovely. An aftermarket set of headers and exhaust really bring these engines to life, but even in the standard system, great amount of power, sounds lovely. One more time. I spent a bit of time on the freeway in this today, and it's just a pleasure. Flick the cruise control on, it just eats up kilometres with absolute delight. Great car all the time, unless you're reversing into a tight car parking spot, then it's mildly terrifying. But all this makes me a bit sad because utes these days are full drive and diesel powered, and except for maybe a couple, they're pretty bloody uninspiring to drive. And thank God these exist in the used car market, because there's nothing new that's even anything close to this, and that's a shame. Pricing kicks off in the mid-teens for high kilometre, kind of dodgy Chevy versions of SSs that have probably been abused to within an inch of their life. And at the other end of the spectrum, it tops out in the high 40s because these things are becoming collectible. So yeah, if you can find a mint condition, completely standard one, expect to pay a bit of money. Holden have a claimed fuel usage of between 12.3 and 14.4 litres per 100 Ks, depending on which variant, gearbox, engine package you've got. On this particular car, it's claimed at 14.3 litres per 100 Ks, but on this test, we're seeing figures deep into the 15s. Holden offered a 3-year, 100,000 kilometre warranty on the entire VE range, meaning these are all completely out of warranty. But the good news is parts and labour shouldn't cost a fortune. As far as parts availability goes, with Holden no longer existing, even though General Motors have committed to 10 years of ongoing support for many Holden models, how that will affect the VE range remains to be seen. Regardless of the GM commitment, with so many VEs still on Aussie roads, plenty of non-OEM suppliers should be providing spare parts for years to come. Servicing is recommended at every 15,000 Ks or 9 months, and look, even though these are pretty bulletproof, as they get older, we'd be upping those service intervals. So should you buy one? Well, look, one of the issues with the Commodore, and if you should buy one, actually has very little to do with the car itself and more to do with you. See, the Commodore in general has been ruined by association. And what we mean is a lot of very undesirable people buy these. If you've watched any Australian dashcam videos, you've definitely seen some bogan idiot doing something bloody stupid in a Commodore. And buying one of these, unfortunately, puts you at risk of being painted with that bogan idiot brush. But ignoring all that and just focusing on the car itself, look, it's a bloody good thing. Look, it's not amazing, and we don't think it's deserving of the cult-like status that it has, but it's a simple, tough, solid vehicle, and it achieves exactly what it set out to do. So if you have an abundance of self-esteem, you don't care what anyone thinks of you, and you're totally okay with the inevitable negative connotations that come with these, then yes, you should buy a VE SS Commodore, because they're a bloody good thing. And because these are no longer made, if you can find a low kilometre, mint condition and completely standard example of one, yeah, it's probably going to be a future classic. Guys, thank you so much for watching. What do you think of the SS Commodore? Let us know in the comments section below. And hey, can you do us a favour and remember to hit those like, subscribe and bell icon buttons? And hey, why not go and follow us on all the socials as well? See you next time. Look, subjective, especially the Sportswagen. I reckon the Sportswagen looks great. F me, are you kidding me? Now, you've got to mow the lawn now. Couldn't he mow the lawn on the weekend? One thing, these, go from the start again, here we go. It may have been drifted into a letterbox or some shrub, Sean Connery again. Okay, here we go. So make sure you check out for any mismatched paint work or dodgy repair. Mismatched paint or dodgy repair work. Holden claim a Holden claim a fuel usage of either 12, Holden claim a fuel usage between 12.3 and 14 okay, here we go. Car. Parts and labour, or 9 months. And look, even though these are pretty bulletproof, as they get older, we'd be upping the regularity of those service intervals. That was terrible. We'd be, what was it? In self-esteem and really don't care what anyone else around, what was that? Sorry, I just got bitten by something. Okay. The cult-like status that it seems to have, but it's a tough, was it? It's a, look, it's a bloody good thing. Look, it's not amazing, and we don't think it's deserving of the cult-like status that it has, but it's a simple, tough, solid vehicle, and yeah, you should buy a V8. I fucked it up on the easiest part. Okay, here we go. Got this.